What's
My
happening?
homie,
Hey Sky, what you doing?
what's going on?
It's Sunday,
Chilling. What's up with your pick?
Boom.
You ain't got your
Oh, look
video?
at this. Hi, how you doing, man?
Oh, there we
I'm doing
go.
good. How are you?
It's a pleasure to meet you, man.
Yeah, for real. I've
And
heard
John, it's
lots.
always Frostmaster. It's always good to see you, man, every day, man.
Oh yeah, you know how we do it.
Let me get hit some.
Man, yeah, this is just another average afternoon, but we got some superstars in the house, man. I can't deny it because people that talk about the history, they start sometimes way too late, and we're trying to remind them it started a little earlier than that. I think that's the project that we're doing, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that this
I
this
mean,
is good because there's a lot that's been left out, I guess you could say.
yeah, a whole bunch. Um, I'm glad we got Mike Sir Sky here because he was the guy that originally, as far as the audio end, got me involved with hip hop by far. There was two guys. It was him and Michael Thomas, Mellow Mike, when we first went to Dirt Cheap Records right off Union to pick up our rappers alike.
Nice, nice. So check it out, Sir Sky. Let me ask you this. Frostmaster has been very helpful sharing about the capping scene where cats were just capping on each other, ranking on each other, just playing the dozens. It has a lot of names. But tell me about that scene, Sky. Paint a picture to the listeners. Like, what was it
Okay.
to be in that scene, man?
So let me start it off this way because this is like my vantage. So when we first started, well, we didn't first start. I was the first one to crack on people with poetry. I would write a poem almost every day, be it on the bus, be it on the lunchroom, the activity center, in class. I would write poems about people and roast them and bring out props. So, if your hair was nappy, I would bring a K cutter, one of those old school metal afro rakes to school and pull it out of my bag. I always had a bag of tricks, you could call it, a bag of props. And so I used to always do that with the poems on the bus or whatever. Well, as the story goes, I would blow him, John, Frostmaster, and Mellow Mike away with poems. And then one day, like he was telling you, I guess they went and got the instrumental of Rapper's Delight and
Rappers
came to
Delight.
school and did a rap and blew my ass away. So we ended up joining together, like, oh man, well, we need to get together. And then I don't know if John ever told you about bubbling brown sugar.
Yeah, that's
But there,
next. That was my next question. Talk about that
yeah.
contest at Garfield High School. Talk about being at Garfield High School.
So me and John, we were very outward about what we were doing. We're like, yeah, we're gonna be in bubbling brown sugar. We're gonna do a rap, and we're gonna cap on everybody in the school. We're just gonna just have a list of names, and we're just gonna go through them and roast everybody. So we both went to the activity center, not the activity center, actually Clarence Acox's music room, and
Okay.
we did
Right.
a practice run in front of a group of people. Now that group of people were dying laughing because we hit everybody and we hit them with stuff that I don't know if our parents would have enjoyed us saying, because we were just uncut, raw, didn't give a damn. Moms, dads, deceased parents, uh, welfare checks, you name it, we attacked it. So if you had something that people knew about underground, it was going to get exposed on that day in bubbling brown sugar. And
If somebody wore the same pair of jeans
oh,
6 days a week, accidentally 6 days a week.
yep, four striped Adidas. Uh,
Yeah.
You
There was
named
a lot
it.
of John Hardys
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They had
for
four
less than
stripe
20
Adidas.
bucks.
If they had Safeway sliders, I mean, you name it, it got brought up. I mean, so, and during that time, we were all happy, because yeah, we're about to win this whole thing with this. Well, a couple of people, which John can tell you, Robert Redwine and a couple other people ran to the administrators, and next thing you know, they're threatening lawsuits, over it. So we couldn't do it. So we got, ousted from doing it. So we
Yeah,
just did it
correct.
everywhere else. But we we
Yeah.
we didn't do it at the Bubbling Brown Sugar, but we did it at every other place that we could possibly do it. Lunchrooms, outside, on buses, in the front of the school, because we had the ability.
Yep. Red wine was back, rest in peace, Red Wine. But
Yep.
back then, he went and who, as if people know in the Seattle hip hop music thing, Red Wine, did production with Kevin Gardner, even though he didn't want to admit it later on. But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, he was a young, he was old. Well, he was about your age.
He's older
Was
than
he a little
me.
bit
He's
older?
1 year older than me.
1 year older than you at the
One
time. So that
grade
he was
anyway. He might have been the
17.
same age, but he's like one grade.
So yeah, so he was like about 17. I think you were about 16. I think I was
Yep.
about 15. And so he got the whole thing stopped, or right there. But later on we would all kind of work together and, see each other because we all went to the same place, what I'm saying? Well, go ahead.
Well, I got a
True.
question now for Frostmaster. Uh, so Frostmaster Chill, describe how Cosmic Crew kind of got its name, and a little bit about like what was Cosmic Crew, because we don't have Mellow Mike on the call, but Mellow Mike is around now. We got him. I met up with him last week. So talk about Cosmic Crew.
So okay, and also Mel Mike was part of that thing with us to do
Hmm.
bubbling brown sugar. I don't want to forget
Hmm.
him. We all three were gonna do it together. But Cosmic Crew, I mean, in your book you say that Mel Mike was in the Cosmic Crew. That wasn't accurate.
Got it.
No, you're
Cosmic
right.
came later. Cosmic Crew came later when we
Got it.
hooked up. So when Mellow Mike went off to Job Corps, right? And he started doing stuff in Portland or whatever in Oregon, doing stuff. And we would still send disc tapes back and forth to each other, right? It's crazy, right?
Wow.
But after that, after when Mello left and me and Mike or Sir Skyy, so and at that time my name wasn't Frostmaster Chill. At that time it was Sir Slam.
Yep.
So
Sir Skyy and Sir
we
Slam.
started tapes together. Yeah. And we started making tapes together. Mike was the main audio dude. There's boxes in his like one compartmental cassette deck in his mom's basement and when he moved out to Renton Highlands. So I would go on a bus every day out there and we
Every
record
day.
these disc tapes and submit them through the CD and everything and man, it was just everybody, my brother and everybody wanted me to go back out there and get another tape so me and Mike can do some more stuff. So we had just talked about this earlier, Mike. He had got some equipment, more equipment from this guy named
Toby.
and what's his name?
Toby
Oh
Woolridge.
man, my mind. Toby. This guy
Yeah.
named Toby.
Mm-hmm.
The story. So Toby Woolridge had this big realistic mixer, right? That had like about how many channels? Six or
It
eight?
was a 8-channel mixer. It was their only 8-channel.
Yeah, 8 channel, 8 channel, and plus he had this big reverb, the realistic
Yep.
reverb thing,
Realistic reverb.
and
A
so
cassette deck.
yeah, cassette deck
Got
where
a
we could
nice cassette
record
deck.
more stuff and bounce and do more pause mixes and stuff like that. Which so in the process of that, we let him in the group, and that's when the Cosmic Crew was born. It was
Yep.
me, supposedly Toby,
who was Star Child.
who was Star Child. So with
We were
Star
just talking
Child,
about that.
right? Just talked about it. And so, but the problem was he didn't never want to practice. He didn't never want
Nope.
to do nothing.
Never wanted to come over.
He was just, and he really wasn't a musician, dude. He just,
Just had
I
the
don't even know how
equipment. He just had the equipment, and he said I could use it because he wasn't using it. It wasn't until
right.
we got really good at using it that he decided he wanted it back one day.
So
That's
he
another
snatched it
story.
back.
Yep.
I had a big old fight with him and all that kind of stuff where I had to whoop his ass. And then,
In
and
front of
then,
Arnold.
yeah, in front of Arnold's.
There.
And it was funny, man. Uh, yeah, I socked him in front of a bouncer, and and we went to the parking lot and beat him up. I beat him up thoroughly. But
So hey, let's now that story kind of needs to be filled in a little bit because we ousted Star Child from the group, based on him taking all the equipment
yeah,
back, and we were like, forget it, we're gonna get our own equipment anyway. So go to hell.
no, he
Well,
did.
they started beefing, and I was telling Star Child, hey, you might want to not. I box with this dude every day. You might want to leave him alone. And so we go down to. So I tell John, hey, we're supposed to be going down to Arnold's tonight, so we're gonna go.
Yep.
Now the reason that this is so funny is so Toby dresses up in like fatigues. He's got on army pants and a black tank top, and he says, "Yeah, I'm going to go
Yep.
down here. I'm going to get him." And I go, "Look, I'm not jumping in to save you if anything happens. So, I'm just telling you right now that you don't want to do this." So anyway, we go down there, and I have to mention Donnie Walker. That's Joyce Walker, related to Cheryl Walker and Donnie Walker. The Walkers are well known anyway for basketball. Um, and
Right, because she also played for the
yep,
Harlem Globetrotters.
yep. And so her brother Donnie was just hilarious. He's one of the funniest people that most people. He should have been a comedian.
Yep.
So we're in the parking lot. It's like, let's go outside. They saw each other, and let's go outside. So they go outside, and Toby doesn't want to come outside at first. And I'm kind of shocked, like, nah, man, we got to go outside. And so they go outside, and the two of them square up. And when they square up, Donnie Walker is doing this impromptu Howard Cosell black man thing. And he's like, oh man, they're about to get down. They're about to throw down. Oh, they put his hands up. John just put his up. Oh, wow. He just hit him in the face. And so, you know, John, being who he was back then, I always say he was the aggressive one out of the two of us. He was the one that was ready to fight in a minute. The we're going to win the fight or the game type of person. He was that person. So when we were outside, Toby says, "What are you going to do now?" And John goes, "I'm going to sock you in your motherfucking mouth." And then he says, "Okay." And then John goes, pow, socks him in his mouth. And then Donnie Walker, he's dazed because he kind of fell back a little bit with his hands up. And the next thing you know, they were fighting, and John was whooping his ass. And then they end up on the ground, and John slips, and then he ends up on top of him. And then he's like, "You're not gonna hold me and hit me, motherfucker." So John just pretty much thoroughly just whooped his ass in that fight. And it was just funny because we had all the ghetto commentary, and this was all over hip hop shit. That's where it all started. It all started because he got jealous over us making use of his equipment. We were making all these tapes, we were getting all this notoriety. And we didn't have social media to put that stuff out back then. We were just, how many tapes did we give out?
I don't know. It was just, man, it was like 10, 15,
And
maybe
they get
20.
dubbed off of that after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So we get people coming up to us that heard those tapes and, man, we heard you and John on tape. Oh my God, we were dying. When are you guys coming out with some more stuff?
Right.
So, Skyy, let me ask you, and this is something to, again, paint the picture of that era. can you speak just for a moment or two about Emerald Street Boys and about Jam Delight? Did you have any experience running across either of those crews? Because Emerald Street Boys was
Yes.
really big, and then Jam Delight was big in West Seattle. They were over in West Seattle.
See, now Jam Delight, I remember hearing the name, but I don't remember them. But I kind of grew up with Eddie Wells. So we both lived in Montlake at one point. And, you know, Eddie was a little younger than me. So we didn't really get along that much. He was, how can I put this?
He's kind of bougie back then.
Well, I can't even. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you could say that his family, his people were kind of bougie, but I just noticed that he was quick to jump and protect the white people. I'll just say that,
Hey,
and go against the brothers when it came to back then. And funny that, like, we'll get to that later, but back in the Encore days, it was more of the same thing.
yeah, kind of factual. Yeah,
Yeah.
he procured a white audience, very tough. But hey, Mike, I want you to talk. I think this is very crucial. I want you to talk about your relationship with Sir Mix-a-Lot, and I'm sure
Oh, here we go.
Novocaine wants to hear this because Novocaine really ain't got the whole scoop about this. This is the most important thing I wanted you here for. But so go ahead and tell that story.
So I have a good friend. His name was Arlen, and we played basketball together. He was just a real good friend of mine out in Renton. He was one of the few brothers that I knew that was from out in Renton that were really cool. There was back then there was only a few, but I met him and I became really good friends with him. And he knew that I did music, so he wanted to introduce me to his friend Ray. And he goes, "You know Anthony Ray?" And I go, "Yeah, I know him. I know him. I had known him, just from school and just being around, because all of us black folks know each other. And I didn't know him as a DJ or anything else at that point in time. I just knew him as Anthony Ray. So one day he comes to my house with this tape and he goes, "Yeah, this is my friend Ray's music right here." And he had a version of Jam on it, that he had done, and I just remember the Mix Wiki. I remember all that shit. And I remember he said, "Well, man, he's doing this right now, but he wants to know how to use this equipment that he just got." And he goes, "I don't know how he got it, but he had, I mean, I can't even remember what keyboards he had. I don't remember what
I
mixers
can
he had."
remember he had a Jupiter 8, he had a Juno 106, he had a Commodore 64,
That's
like
fucking amazing that you remember that. But I do remember the Commodore 64 because I've always been a computer guy. So
yeah.
I do remember the Commodore 64 because I remember, like, the music software for the Commodore was off the chain at that time. So I do remember that much. But he didn't know how to hook all that stuff up. So I went to his house with Arlen, and my only requirement is that I get to make some tapes, make some shit of my own, which I did. Um, but he was doing all this stuff. This was all way before Square Dance Rap. This was way before any of that stuff. But he got all that equipment, and I went over there and started helping him hook it up. And then I'm
Because
a
you were an audio guy.
I've been a good audio guy since I was 8. I mean, I've been tearing stuff apart and putting stuff together and making it work and making
I know
splicing
because
and
that's how I learned was through
doing
you.
all.
You
I
were doing the
mean,
RCA, the correlations, all that.
to this day, that's what I do. I'm an electronics guy. So I'm
Like you
still.
hook up all the equipment for people,
Mhm.
their home systems and everything, and you've done like the Google places and shit like that.
Yep. So, even back then, I was still electronically inclined. And so it was a gift. I think it was a gift or something. But I just knew how to do things. And you know, uh, I was hooking up a lot of his stuff and making it work. And we were experimenting and playing around. Then he was like, "Well, let's do some, hey, man, I want to do these parties, at the Boys and Girls Club." And so we went and did a couple parties at the Boys and Girls Club, and I didn't get the money that I should have got. And and to be real, I don't think he got the money he was thinking he was going to get from the Boys and Girls Club, because a lot of people, I know, John, you would know this. A lot of motherfuckers snuck in the back door. You know, you know, people let their friends in, without paying and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
but Captain Love and them guys got their money.
Sometimes,
He had a whole crew.
and
So
see,
I don't know how.
but I know that when
You know.
I went with him, it was me, him, and some of his people, you know, and I know that a lot more people. Well, I could be wrong. They could have got all their money, and that's just what he said. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably the case
Yeah, I mean,
because
I would
he
say,
was
yeah,
real,
there's a more
he was real
believability in the
forceful
lie than the
dude
than the
back
so-called truth.
then.
So anyway, did that with him a couple times, and
Because
then
remember, all those guys that mostly came.
say that again.
Go
We
ahead.
losing you.
No, go ahead.
Oh, you
Can you
just
hear me?
disappeared for a second. I hear you now.
Oh, I did. Oh, man, mother. No, I just said go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, I didn't know most of the cats that he hung with. I was introduced to him, but if you knew me back then, if if I met you once, I'm not gonna remember you, a year later or 2 years later when I see you, unless you come up and tell me your name. That's just how I've always been.
Well,
So unless I'd mess with you,
so Skyy, we got to talk about this. So you mentioned just about 5 minutes ago, you mentioned the Encore nightclub. So let me ask you this: as a b-boy, most b-boys, you would be it would be like the more important you were, you could be a DJ and an MC and a producer and a great graffiti artist. You could be everybody, or
right,
you could specialize.
right.
What was your philosophy on that?
So for me, I was like I called myself an engineer more than I did a rapper. My rapping was just mainly cap rapping. Um, so I was more of an engineer. That's what I called myself. I didn't really live that. I really didn't live that b-boy life. I mean, I was running back and forth to Canada by the time Encore came along, and I was DJing off and on in those clubs up there. It wasn't until I got an opportunity
You
down.
gotta,
Go ahead.
Mike, you gotta
Yeah.
tell the story about Encore. You gotta tell that story.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. So with Encore, it's kind of funny. So like I said, I was going back and forth to Canada because I had a girl up there, and I had met some DJs in Canada that were really good, and I'll have to tell the story of DJ Dave later. But I was already a pretty tight DJ as far as my mixing ability back then, and so Keith Olson, the guy that owned Encore, had just opened up Encore, and he was like, I need a DJ, I want a DJ, and the only two people that he was talking about doing it was possibly Mix-a-Lot and somebody else at the time. It wasn't even Eddie Wells at the time. He wasn't mentioned.
I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, he wasn't mentioned to me when it came to Keith Olson at first, because I met Keith Olson on the basketball court. And Keith Olson was like, "Hey man, I want to go out with you and play basketball and, work on my game and whatever." So we did that. That's the relationship we had at first. And then he then I started finding out about his business ventures, and he was opening up this club, and so I got basically first shot at DJ in there. And I'm like, yeah, cool, because I go back and forth to Canada right now. I'll take that job. And so I took the job at Encore before Eddie Wells was mentioned. And then a couple of people, when I was DJing or whatever, I was telling John that I'm probably going to go up to Canada and play. I'm going to go up and play at the Warehouse. I don't know if you've ever heard of the
Yeah.
Warehouse, but the Warehouse in Canada was the club. So I wanted to DJ there. And plus, they were paying an obscene amount of money per night for a DJ.
I was
So,
just gonna say, man, I don't know you want to shout it out, but where you were making some bank, that was some bank.
to get Friday and Saturday at that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the warehouse, and I was at the Cotton Club and Panache, and even Richards on Richards once in a while on Wednesdays when I was in Canada. So the Canadian money doubled the American money. I'm not saying in worth, but like if you got $200 to DJ a night in Seattle, you got 500 or 600 a night to DJ up there, and it was American money at the time. So it was, I mean, I was living the life at that time once I moved up there. But anyway, when I was at Encore, I started hearing about Eddie Wells, and I go, oh, I know him. I've known him since he was called Sugar Bear when he was a kid. So I've known him since he was probably 8 years old. So I wasn't worried about him, and he wasn't going to. Keith was not going to replace me with Eddie Wells. He already said that I'm good. But then I got the opportunity to work at Warehouse, and I couldn't turn that down. So I was like, Keith, I gotta go. And Keith had this thing where every single night at the end, he wanted me to play. He wanted whoever was DJing, myself. He wanted us to play Cheryl Lynn, the song Encore at the very end. He wanted us to play that
Wow,
song.
I didn't know that.
You did not know that?
I
Yeah,
did
he
not
wanted us
know
to
that. I
play
thought
the
Eddie Wells
drum
came
beat.
up with that.
Boom, cat, boom, 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 pat. We play that, and then the whole intro, and then your love.
Yep, because that's
It's
what
like
Eddie
an
was doing
encore,
too.
and then the night was over.
Yep.
Every night. And Wells did that shit too. After I was gone, he did
Yeah.
the same
Yeah, he
thing,
did.
encore, when it
I
was
thought he
over.
started it. I thought
No,
he started it.
no. Keith Olsen wanted that. He was very into the black music.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Keith
Hey,
Olsen.
so
Keith Olsen was one of those people that could say, "Hey, have you heard of MC Bubblicious Fish Eyes?" And you never. Who the fuck is that? He
I
would know.
don't even know who that is right now.
There's no such thing. But I'm just saying, you could some off-brand rapper that made an underground tape in Texas, he would know. He was
Right.
that type of dude.
Hey, well, I got a question. Like in Nova Kane's book, right?
Uh-huh.
Seattle, Birth of Seattle rap, right? He talks about how Mix-a-Lot worked at the Seattle Center in the amusement in the where the arcade place,
Right.
And in the arcade place, he states that I think he got that information from Mix-a-Lot. Mix-a-Lot was always into electronics, and he used to repair the pinball machines and everything like that. Since you were really an electronics guy, do you think that's true?
No. Because even like for me, I can tell you. So I have somebody that works for me that is kind of a natural. Kind of reminds me of myself. He's young, 19 years old, and he just knows how to hook things up. I have to, guide him, but I didn't have anybody guiding me. I had to do it by trial and error.
Yep.
But you know, people like us are not people that just I mean, I worked with the guy on his equipment. He didn't know how to hook up like RCAs and MIDI cables and stuff like he was supposed to back then and what he needed because like I said, I don't know how he got what he got, but he didn't have what was necessary and I knew what was necessary.
I kind of know how he got what he got.
I mean, I know what I heard.
Yeah, heard.
Yeah.
So I want to put a disclaimer on that of what I heard.
Because I heard the same thing as you.
Yeah, he had friends in the neighborhood like Kenny Crime and Mac D, who Baron Von Scratch on your earlier interview, which was a good interview, talked about. Well, Mac D and Kenny Crime and I think a dude named Spade went and hit American Music and took
Yeah, I heard it was Petosa.
It a lot. No, again,
I heard it was Petosa.
Yeah, that Petosa too.
Yeah.
Both stores.
Yeah.
So but also, and a matter of fact, I want to speak on this about that interview with Baron Von Scratch, right? Novocaine. In the end, which was a good interview. I like Baron Von Scratch, right? Baron Von Scratch said that 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 they didn't. I was glad he cleared up that Mix-a-Lot wasn't a computerized DJ, that they didn't use computers to mix. He was
Not
right.
at all.
Yeah, which it would have been at that time. There was no real musical software programs to sequence and do stuff like that. There was
And he
stuff.
had cheap turntables. He had Scott turntables too. I
Yeah,
remember.
Scott's turntables that you really couldn't needle rock on, as we called it, or going from one record to another and do break mixing. Just not able to do that. So I was
No,
glad
they'd
he.
bounce around. You'd have to put quarters and
I
nickels.
think I think Baron von Scratch confused what my brother said in a previous interview. He said like he was trying to clear up that they didn't. Our perception was that they used computers to mix. That wasn't our perception. That was actually what they said, or specifically what Mix-a-Lot and the writer Glenn Boyd said, and it's well documented in the Rocket magazine at that time, probably 1984, 1985, of them calling him the computerized DJ. He wasn't. Glenn Boyd just lied about that. There wasn't. In fact, when Mix-a-Lot hosted a guy named, oh, what was the name of that DJ? Fresh Gordon. Fresh Gordon.
I
I don't
remember Fresh Gordon.
remember Fresh Gordon. It was song Fresh.
Yep.
Fresh Gordon was actually the guy who did, because he did it live on at the Paramount, right? Mix-a-Lot hosted that show. Mix-a-Lot came on the stage because I was there and said, hey, well, I'd like to introduce somebody who's really into put computers and everything. I know I said I did it, but I lied. He admitted on stage that he wasn't telling the truth about that.
Ooh.
So, yeah, so that's a big misconception back then, that he was the computerized DJ.
Well, let me ask this. While we still have about 5 or 6 minutes here. Frostmaster Chill went on to join Dark Set Crew for a few years, more than a few years. I want to ask Sir Skyy, did you ever start a record label, or did you ever put out any mass-produced music? Did you ever put out any
No.
kind of like
No.
any kind of
Never did.
record?
I've done music, but never really got into that because I went off to school for 2 years, and I also DJ'd in Canada forever. So I was just up there. I was still making tapes and still doing all that stuff, but I wasn't doing the rapping. That's when I kind of got out of the rap game.
Yeah. Oh, I want to also say, going back to BVS, this final thing that BVS said. BVS said when my brother watched him, or watched Mix-a-Lot on the 4-track doing mixes and everything, BVS said that Mix-a-Lot did not DJ with the 4-track and everything.
He
Again,
did play music out of a 4-track though
yes,
at
that's
those
exactly what
parties.
he did. So my brother didn't say that he DJ'd that he DJ imitating the 4-track. What he said, because we were there, we seen him. BBS wasn't there, like in those beginning days when he was DJing at the Boys Club and everything. At least he wasn't there when I looked, or when my brother was there, right? But he would play master mixes that other people that either he had done in the beginning or that other people did. Ness used to do the same thing. There were master mixes, but they never did. You know, there was guys like the Latin Rascals with Chep Nunez and those guys. Those guys did master mixes and then shot them out all across the country. So especially Ness was able to get stuff like that, and he sort of said that, you know, he did it when he really didn't do that. And then so Mix was kind of doing the same thing. He pre-record mixes and stuff on the 4-track. We've seen him. We know it. Now, what he would do, he did do some live scratching. He would, you know, you switch the channel on the track, and then you start scratching. But he never was like a mixer.
No, I can attest to
did, but
that.
not him.
I can attest to the fact that I could tell he couldn't mix and he couldn't do anything
Right.
when
So
it came to actual mixing, because that was me.
Yeah. So because we really mix, like BVS, me, Mike, Mike Joyce, we really were mixers. Eddie Wells, you know, we really got down to mixing. So
What
That I just
about
hope clear that up.
Skyy? Here's one of my last questions for you right here. What about Latifs? I just met Pat and Lester Green. They ran that club called Latifs for about 4 years,
Right.
and it was really hot in about 81, 82. Did you ever step foot into Latifs?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
I mean that was like one of the spots that you would just stop through on a Friday or Saturday night.
yeah.
Now I never, I actually worked at Herbert's Club Turning Point back then too. I had forgot about that one before I
And I
left to
worked at
Canada.
and I was a DJ at one of Herbert's club, the First Avenue Oasis. Me
Hmm.
and Sergio LaCour. Sergio DJ'd at first, and then I came after and took over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did a lot of local stuff like that because I had almost forgot about working the clubs for Herbert.
Yeah, that's our friend's uncle, Joey
Yep.
Gant.
Oh, here's my lingering question for you, Sky. At the warehouse in Canada, would you be playing electronic music or is this all hip hop? Like, what
It
was your
was
record? Give me like
R and
five
B and
titles.
hip hop.
Give
It
me
was
like five titles that would kill it up there, man.
okay. Alexander O'Neill
That's soft ass
Sherelle,
shit.
Saturday Love. But I used to mix that with other stuff and make like take the acapella of that song and mix it with something else. And just basically
Had
I
a
was so
live
good at mixing I
808,
could play it all the way through.
and he had a live 808 there too.
It sure did. Had an 808 and two Techniques 1500s. The first time I had seen anything with a
Damn,
larger number than the 1200.
woo. Those were the bad.
They were so nice. And
Yeah,
I and I
1200s are
just
the
remember
standard, but 1500s are just the gold. That was
there
like
was a lot of
unheard of. Was it, did it go 10 points?
RJ's latest arrival, Alexander O'Neill, as John would call it, Jerry Curl music.
Jerry Curl music.
Um,
What he did.
a lot of full force type stuff. I mean, it was, but back then the whole Alexander O'Neill, uh, R&B thing was
The
cracking. So,
time,
yep, all of it.
779 311. That
There
was
was a
you.
lot of stuff, and we were starting to get into
Oh, Sheila
the
shit.
90s stuff because it was after all that. It was after that. I was mixing when that stuff came out, but I was working in Canada in the early part of the 90s, like the late 80s, early 90s. So the music was getting more like the first time I heard there was a song. Damn, I'm trying to remember what it was. The first time I heard it was Up There. And then next thing you know, it was being played in Seattle.
We might have to leave
Um,
it there. We might have to leave it right there.
okay.
I'm gonna toss it to Frostmaster for the last couple final words.
Okay.
We got about a minute left.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm just glad you had us on, man, and people need to get the book if they want to learn more about Seattle rap. I don't know if you guys can see it. Got some good stuff up in there and everything. And me and Sir Skyy go way back to the stuff, and I'm glad that you're talking about this because 206 Zulu, they're only getting the Mix-a-Lot story, the Nasty Nesses, the Mix-a-Lots, and all that. They're not getting the guy that was really on the streets like Captain Love, KOC, SOS,
Yeah.
Jam Delight, what really happened with the Emerald Street Boys and all that kind of stuff.
That's what
So
I'm
right
saying.
here,
Skyy, good to have you, man. Good to have you, Skyy. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. I appreciate being on.
All right, we're out, man. See ya.
gone.